Hi friends, I hope you're all doing well. I'm so glad to be able to share this spiritual practice with you. As we begin, I invite you to get comfortable. Take a moment to feel your groundedness on the earth, the life flowing into you through your breath, and the awareness in your own consciousness. Relax, still your body and mind, and open yourself to Spirit in whatever way is helpful for you. Feel free to pause the video until you feel ready to dive into the work of today's practice. And then when you're ready, invite images into your mind of the world as you see it now. Don't try to control or judge those images. Just let them flow into your awareness. Note them for a moment, and then release them to make space for the next image. When you feel that you've done this enough, take a few moments to collate your images into a one-sentence story that reflects how you feel about the world now. You can write the story down in your journal or on your phone, or you can just let the words flow through you. But once again, don't judge. Don't judge your story. Don't try to fit it into any external standard to which you may be tempted to conform. Just allow the story to emerge. And then when you've got your one-sentence story in front of yourself, ask yourself what you would want to change about your story of the world. Where do you fit into the story? What impact does the story have on your life? And what would you prefer to be different? Sit with your thoughts and feelings for a moment, and then invite the Divine Spirit to ignite your imagination as we begin to explore what a different story might look like. And this prayer may be helpful to you. Spirit of God, fill my eyes with a vision of your dream for my world. Fill my mind with the wisdom to see how that dream may become a reality. And fill my being with the courage and strength to do what it takes to live in your country, even as I live in the ordinary world. So may it be. What does the word rest mean to you? What does it take for you to rest? And how does your capacity to rest impact those around you, including the planet we share? Now, you may be wondering what the idea of rest has to do with a series that explores living in God's country. But actually, this idea of rest is right at the heart of what the scriptures mean when they speak of the kingdom of God. In this chapter, we're going back to the Old Testament to explore a unique feast in the Israelite calendar, the Jubilee. But before we get there, we have some background to cover. In Exodus 20, we read of the 10 commandments that God gave to the Israelites through Moses. The fourth commandment is this: remember to observe the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. The reason given for this command is that God created the world in 6 days and then rested on the seventh, which means that in Israelite thinking, rest is built into the universe as a right, not a privilege. In Deuteronomy chapter 5, the 10 commandments are repeated. And once again, the fourth commandment is to remember the Sabbath. Only the reason given for this commandment is different. Remember that you were once slaves in Egypt, but the Lord your God brought you out with his strong hand and powerful arm. That is why the Lord your God has commanded you to rest on the Sabbath day. You see, this time, The call to rest is connected with liberation, with justice, with freedom. It occurs to me that one of the most significant differences between the rich and the poor, between the powerful and the oppressed, is their ability to rest, their freedom to rest. Rest is the privilege of the wealthy and the powerful. The poor have no chance to rest because it takes everything they have just to survive. Those who are oppressed have little chance to rest because they are constantly at the beck and call of the powerful who require their services. The Israelites, to whom this commandment was given, had known only slavery at this point, no rest. And so at the onset of their life as a nation, they are told to rest and to make sure that everyone in their nation, whether citizen or foreigner, whether animal or human or land, would have regular times to rest. This was about justice, quality of life, and dignity for all. I'm reminded of something I read earlier this year on Facebook. In South Africa, we have a national holiday on the 1st of May called Workers' Day. And someone commented on the irony that on this day, when workers are supposed to have a holiday, the wealthy get to rest, while those who keep our shops open, who keep deliveries happening and essential services functioning, can't rest because they still have to work. The workers for whom Workers' Day was set up are the ones who have to keep working, while the rich get a chance to rest. Perhaps this gives us an insight into why the Sabbath day was included in Israel's 10 most important commandments. But the Sabbath was not just about one day a week. The commandment expanded to include 1 year in every 7 that was called the Sabbath Year. Every 7 years, the entire nation would stop. There would be no work for an entire year. People would live off only what they could glean off the land, and everyone, including animals and the land itself, would get a break from the constant pressure of labor. Can you even imagine what it would be like to have a year off like that? But wait, there's more. After every 49 years, 7 sets of Sabbath years, there would be an extra year off. So you would get a Sabbath year in year 49, and then in year 50, a Jubilee would be announced. This was a second year of complete rest. But there were also 3 primary changes in society that were supposed to happen. Firstly, if anyone had become so financially strapped that they'd been forced to sell their land, they got their land back, free of charge. But for some people, selling their land wasn't enough to keep them out of trouble. They'd been forced to take on debt. And so at the Jubilee, these debts were cancelled. And finally, there were those who had landed in so much trouble that the only way to survive was to sell themselves into slavery. And those people were released at the Jubilee. Just imagine going from being homeless, indebted, and enslaved one day to having your land back, your debts cancelled, and being set free the next. And can you imagine how an economy based on such a radical idea of rest would work? Land, for example, was never really supposed to have been bought and sold. What you were meant to pay for was the number of harvests until the next Jubilee. So the land price should actually have gone down as the Jubilee got closer. The whole idea behind the Jubilee was to ensure that everyone got a chance to rest completely, free of fear, of debt, and of the demands of some powerful master or mistress. This has become one of my favorite definitions of justice. A just world is one where everyone's right to adequate rest is valued and celebrated and protected. I can't imagine that the rich and powerful like this idea of Jubilee very much, which probably explains why the biblical record includes not even one account of the Jubilee actually being celebrated in Israel. It was never celebrated as far as we know. But even so, this idea of Jubilee was one that seems to have captured the imagination of the average Israelite, especially when they experienced times of oppression and slavery under wicked kings or occupying nations. The prophet Ezekiel even made reference to the Jubilee in his description of the renewed and just Israel that the Messiah would bring into being. And so when the Israelites dreamed of the new messianic kingdom that would be established in the last days, they thought of it in terms of the Jubilee. Isaiah called it the year of the Lord's favor. What would it mean for you to begin thinking of God's reign in these terms? What if the reign of God was simply an invitation to break free of the tyranny of human busyness, productivity, consumption, and greed? What would it mean to you to live your life in restfulness? Wouldn't that enable you to connect more deeply with the earth and its creatures? Wouldn't that make it easier to deepen your relationships, to take care of your health, and to live a richer, more abundant life? Isn't this a life, a world worth dreaming of, worth working towards? Return to that space of groundedness and stillness that you were in at the start of this practice. Allow a few moments for this reflection to sink into your heart, and take note of anything that stood out for you, that challenged you or inspired you. Now go back to the story you wrote in the beginning of this practice. Compare it to the dream that we've just been talking about. And now I encourage you to write another story about the world. This time, make it a little longer, maybe 1 or 2 paragraphs. And describe the world as you would like it to be. Keep in mind how you see the world now as expressed in the short story you wrote earlier, and also keep in mind the dream that we've explored in today's reflection. And try to make this new story that you're writing now realistic and practical, but also hopeful and filled with possibilities. And again, you can pause the video if you need a while to do this. And when you're done writing your new story about the world, make sure to keep it somewhere close to you so that you can return to it throughout the week, so that you can allow it to fill your heart and mind with its inspiration. And now, as we prepare to return to the practical details of living, take a moment to identify one thing you can do to live as if your hopeful story of the world was a reality now. Think of one thing that can move you a little closer to making this dream real for you, and commit to doing that thing as consistently as you can through the week. See yourself living in this new world of your story. Imagine making the habits and feelings and attitudes of your story the way you actually live now, even though your world, the one you're really in right now, may be very different from the one you've been imagining. And now go into your week to live in God's country, even as you live in our ordinary world.